Part 1. The Prince of the Pool Hall. I've been a street kid for years. A nobody. Then, out of nowhere, someone tells me I'm the long-lost heir to a fortune. The moment my supposed birth parents stepped out of their Rolls-Royce, I was shirtless, with a punk girl draped over my arm, hustling a game of 9-ball in a dingy pool hall. They saw the skull tattoo on my left bicep and the coiled serpent on my right. They heard me cursing a blue streak. Every other were a bomb. Their faces went pale. Instinctively, they shielded the designer-clad boy standing behind them. 1. The secret in the basement. Nobody would have guessed that me, a guy who basically lived in a basement apartment, was actually the switched-at-birth son of the Clark family, founders of Clark Industries. The smoky, run-down pool hall was a universe away from their polished world. They stared at me, shirtless and unimpressed, their faces a mask of disbelief. If it wasn't for the uncanny resemblance I had to the man, they would have never believed I was the son they'd been searching for. The woman, dripping in jewelry, her voice trembling, asked, "Are you Blaze?" I took a drag from my cigarette, my hand resting on my girl's thigh, my patience wearing thin. "Who's asking?" My crew exchanged confused glances. "Yo, Blaze, who are these people? Are we still playing this game, or what?" "Bets are on the table." I smacked the back of my boy's head. "Dumbass. Of course we are. You want to start tonight?" Just as I was about to drop my favorite four-letter word, the fancy lady lunged forward, trying to hug me. But I caught the flicker of disgust in her eyes, the way her nose wrinkled just a little. Whatever. I'd seen that look my whole life. "Blaze, I'm your mother," she cried. "My son, you've suffered so much. I finally found you." She was getting more and more hysterical, her eyes welling up with tears. It was starting to freak me out, and I scanned the room. Getting a rep is everything on the street. If word got out that I made some old lady cry, I'd be a laughingstock. I was about to push her away when a younger woman in a red dress, who had been quiet until now, looked at me with a complicated expression. "Blaze, or I should say Caleb. I'm your sister, Chloe. 18 years ago, our nanny, your adoptive mother, Brenda, pulled a classic baby swap. That's why you've been out here all this time." So that was it. No wonder Brenda never gave a damn about me. She was always calling me a bastard and kicked me out of the house before I was even a teenager. If it hadn't been for the old lady next door, Mrs. Gable, who snuck me food, I probably would have starved to death. Chloe unloaded the whole story, talking about how hard their search had been, how evil my so-called adoptive mother was. She didn't seem to notice that with every word she spoke, the boy behind her grew paler. Just then, the man, my father, I guess, who hadn't said a word, gave her a subtle tug on her sleeve. She realized she'd said too much and quickly went to his side, whispering something in his ear. Even my mother, who had been clinging to my hand, instinctively let go and rushed over to comfort the other boy. "Ashton, you will always be my son," she cooed. "This is adult business. It has nothing to do with you." What a touching family drama. That day, under the stunned gazes of my crew, I got into a multi-million-dollar car and was driven away. Those idiots ran after the car, half cheering, half howling. "Blaze, you're the man. Don't forget us when you're rolling in it." I rolled down the window and gave him a thumbs up. The Clark family looked at me with a mixture of disgust and suspicion. So much for the happy reunion. "Caleb," my father said, his voice cold, "I expect you to cut ties with your past and start a new life. From now on, your every word and action represents the Clark family name and affects our company's reputation. When we get home, you will begin your education on these matters." I almost laughed. While I was about to starve, these were the ties that kept me alive, one shared slice of pizza, one stolen candy bar at a time. What a pain in the ass. My new sister, Chloe, who had just been whispering sweet nothings to Ashton, turned on me like a viper. "What did you just say? You have no manners at all." Before I could fire back, a soft, whiny voice cut in. "Brother, it's all my fault. I stole your life," Ashton said, his eyes glistening. "Don't be mad at Chloe. If you need to blame someone, blame me. Does Clark Industries sell bullshit for a living?" I pinched my nose and pretended to gag. Yeah. You're right. Now, cut the crap. A grown man crying like that. It's pathetic." The look on his face froze. Nobody had expected me to be so blunt. The car fell silent. After a long moment, my father gave me a complex look. It was clear he felt nothing for me. Not in my personality, my attitude, or my appearance. Fine by me. The less they try to play happy family, the better. I turned my head and watched the city blur past my window. Part 2. The heir apparent. After a few more miles of silence, my so-called mother finally spoke. "Caleb, don't misunderstand," she said, her voice strained. "Ashton has always been sensitive. He's just worried that now that you're back, we won't want him anymore. He doesn't mean any harm. I hope the two of you can get along." My sister clearly wasn't convinced. She shot me a warning look. "Ashton has a weak constitution. Watch what you say around him. And when you get home, you'd better lose the attitude. The Clark family has strict rules, and you'll be expected to learn them by heart. You should try to be more like your brother. Maybe then you can help him run the company one day." That last part laid it all out. My parents just nodded along, their true feelings on full display. I dug a finger in my ear. My personal code was simple. If someone hurts you, you hurt them back worse. "Chloe, how old are you?" I asked, leaning in close with a grin. I had to admit, the Clark genes weren't half bad. She blushed. 25. What? I let out a short, harsh laugh. I'd have guessed 52. You nag like an old lady. I pinched my nose again. Seriously, it stinks. When was the last time you showered? Her face went from red to white. Ashton jumped in to play the peacemaker. "Brother, you don't have to be afraid. We're your family now. When we get home, I'll teach you everything you need to know. You should stay away from those street thugs. They aren't in our league." I was getting tired of his phony, meaningless act. But my dear parents were eating it up. "Ashton, you're too good," my mother said, stroking his hair. "It's not your responsibility to help him. Don't wear yourself out." I threw my legs up on the seat. "The last time I saw your parents, they threw me out on the street to starve. The thugs you're talking about, they're the ones who kept me alive. My neighbor, Mrs. Gable, and my crew, they saved my life. So don't you dare talk to me about who's in my league. You sound like a hypocrite." My voice was calm, but I held his gaze with a smile. "Of course, I have you to thank for all of it, right? My dear brother." The car went dead silent again. Even Chloe had the sense to shut her mouth. Ashton had stopped his little crying act, his fists clenched tight. I ripped open my shirt. "You want to know why I got these tattoos?" When they got a clear look at my torso, they all flinched. It was a roadmap of scars, faded white lines crisscrossing fresh, angry red ones. "Your father did this," I said, pointing at the scars. "With his belt. Of course, he doesn't dare touch me now. You know what?" Ashton swallowed hard, his eyes wide with fear. Seeing their reaction, I finally laughed. They really thought they could play games with me. When you have nothing to lose, you're not afraid of anything. They could play all the mind games they wanted. One punch from me would shatter it all. The first thing the Clarks did when they got me back was throw a massive party. Officially, it was to celebrate my return. But I wonder how many people there were actually happy about it. The guest list was long, packed with business partners, family, and friends. The Clarks were old money, no doubt about it. The tie they made me was worth more than I'd ever seen in my life. They put me in a custom-tailored suit and a ridiculously expensive watch. They thought they could just buy me a new identity, erase the past with money. Not a chance. Half an hour before the party started, I had the stylist they hired shave my head. Then I took a pair of scissors to the $1,000 suit, cutting it into a makeshift tank top to show off my skull and the serpent tattoos. When my parents saw me, they looked horrified, but it was too late to do anything. They had no choice but to push me out onto the floor like a show pony. The world of the super rich is small. Our family's dirty little secret was already old news. What they hadn't expected was that I was a complete savage. Across the room, the perfect son, Ashton, stood dutifully by Chloe's side, schmoozing with powerful guests like he was born to it. I stayed on high alert. An opportunity this good? He was definitely going to try and set me up, make me look like a fool. And right on cue, Ashton zeroed in on my location. "Brother, let me introduce you to some of the important people here." My mother saw this, and her eyes lit up with approval. "I was so worried you two wouldn't get along. That's a great idea. Go with Ashton, meet his friends. It'll be a good experience for you." "Don't worry, Mom," he said, but his eyes were like a snake's, fixed on me. I smiled to myself. "You try to screw me over, and I'll make you regret it for the rest of your life." He led me to a table filled with other rich kids, the sons and daughters of the city's elite. They all looked me up and down, smirking at my custom butchered outfit. I didn't care. I pulled out a chair and dropped into it. Hey, everyone. Name's Blaze, I said. Oh, wait. I guess it's Caleb now. Trash is trash, no matter what you call it, one of the guys sneered. Ruining a perfectly good suit like that. Ashton immediately jumped in to play the good guy. Connor, don't say that. My brother just isn't used to this yet. It's his first time in an event like this. Don't give him a hard time. A girl with perfect makeup and a cold expression scoffed. Ashton, you're too nice. He's here to steal your inheritance, and you're defending him. I picked up a glass of champagne and laughed. Can't be helped. It's a shame Ashton's birth parents are broke. I bet they'd be thrilled to know their plan worked out so well. After all, he's a Clark in name and spirit now, even if he's forgotten where he came from. Ashton's face turned ashen, his knuckles white from gripping the table. I suddenly looked up and met his venomous stare. You really enjoy this stolen life, don't you? My philosophy is simple. You insult me, I humiliate you tenfold. Listen, Caleb, another guy said, drawing out my name, in our circle, it's not about where you came from, it's about connections. Ashton is our friend. As for you, you can go back to whatever hole you crawled out of. My awkward position in the family was clearly the talk of the town. In their eyes, Ashton was the undisputed heir to Clark Industries. Sucking up to him was the smart play. Guys, don't be like that. He's my brother, Ashton said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. Here, brother, have a drink. He pushed a glass of dark red liquid toward me. Sorry, I promised Mom I wouldn't smoke or drink. Got to be a good boy just like you. I had smelled it the moment he brought it over. The drink was drugged. While they were busy talking, I'd already swapped our glasses. This kid, with his innocent face, was a natural at this dirty work. Brother, I understand, he said, putting on a wounded expression. You don't like me, so of course you wouldn't accept a drink from me. Jesus, this guy's passive-aggressive act is next level. Fine, I said. Whatever I drink, you drink. I grabbed the glass in front of me, his original drug glass, and poured it into his empty one. Then I downed the one he had tried to give me. I slammed back 2 more for good measure. Pretending to be drunk, I leaned over and slurred in his ear. Ashton, I'm feeling dizzy. I'm going to go upstairs and lie down. A malicious smile flickered across his face. I'll help you, brother. I got a suite for you. Ashton practically carried me out. I could feel his breathing quicken with anticipation. A few minutes later, we were standing outside a hotel room door. He pulled out the key card, but just as he was about to swipe it, he seemed to realize something was wrong. It was too late. I snatched the card, unlocked the door, and shoved him inside, slamming it shut behind him. Enjoy the gift you prepared for me, Ashton. Of course, if he hadn't planned anything evil, then he had nothing to worry about. I had just come back, and he was already this desperate to take me out. My dear sweet brother, losing your cool is a fatal flaw in the world of business. Soon enough, I could hear moans coming from inside the room. Just as I suspected, his methods were filthy. The next step, I figured, would be for his buddies to bring our parents up here to catch me in the act. What a show. I hid in an alcove down the hall, waiting for the drama to unfold. Before long, that pack of rich kids came rushing up the stairs, a group of adults in tow. When they got to the hallway, they couldn't see either of us. Connor, are you sure they came up here? One of the men, his father, asked. Connor started to panic. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He stammered, Yes, Dad, I'm sure. Let's just keep looking. A few minutes later, their search led them to a suite where unmistakable sounds were coming from a door that was slightly ajar. The adults in the group were seasoned pros. They didn't bat an eye. Some even chuckled. Someone's in a hurry, one of them joked. The whole floor had been booked by the Clarks, so it had to be one of the guests. Let's just find our boys, my father said, looking embarrassed. He was more worried about what I might have done to Ashton than anything else. Wait, Connor said, stopping everyone from leaving. He didn't know why the plan had changed, but the scene was playing out just as they'd scripted. That's got to be Caleb in there. Connor, don't be ridiculous, his father hissed. It was one thing for me to be an outcast, but this was about the Clark family's public image. I'm not, Dad. I'm sure it's. He cut himself off, realizing he was saying too much. Whatever, just open the door and you'll see. My father was now in an impossible position. Ashton's friends were all convinced it was me in that room, and they didn't hold back their contempt. What do you expect from some kid from the gutter? Can't even control himself. He probably hired some cheap hooker. Hope he doesn't bring home a disease. My sister's face was a mask of fury. That bastard. We should have just left him on the street. Looking for someone, I stepped out of the shadows, a polite, innocent smile on my face. Connor's face went white. How are you not in the room? He was still just a kid. A little pressure and he cracked completely. I laughed. That's not my room. So why would I be in there? What are you implying? I feigned confusion. I just wanted the restroom to splash some water on my face. My brother said he'd wait right here for me. The door is open, isn't it? Playing dumb, I put my hand on the doorknob. Let's just take a look. My mother panicked and tried to stop me, but it was too late. I threw the door wide open. The sounds from inside became crystal clear. For good measure, I flipped on the lights so they wouldn't miss a thing. Well now, that was something. The city folk really knew how to party. A tangle of limbs, pale skin and dark shadows, flashing in the sudden light. It nearly blinded me. When they dragged Ashton off the bed, he was still in a daze. That stuff he used was potent. I'd have to ask him where he got it later. By the time he came to his senses, the room was empty except for the Clark family. Fragmented memories flooded his mind, and panic set in. Mom, Dad, listen to me. It's not what it looks like. It was him. It was Caleb. He drugged me. I was lounging on the sofa, and I let out a cold laugh. Still lying. Too bad no one believes you. My father glanced at me, then gritted his teeth and slapped Ashton across the face. You disgraceful thing. I never realized you were so manipulative. The slap seemed to snap Ashton out of it. Dad, what are you doing? You don't believe me. His eyes turned red, as if he'd been deeply wronged. Cut the act. Connor told us everything. Ashton realized his lies had been exposed. He dropped to his knees and grabbed our father's pant leg. Dad, I was wrong. I lost my head. I was just so scared you were going to kick me out and send me back to my birth parents. I don't want to go back. You're my real family. His voice was sincere, his emotions raw. He was getting better at this. Maybe this time, he was genuinely terrified. Oh, Ashton, you foolish boy, my mother said, pulling him into a hug. You will always be my child. My father looked at him, furious but also helpless. You see what you've done? He snapped at my mother. You've spoiled him. I had thought that after a stunt this humiliating, they would throw Ashton out for sure. But I had underestimated the bond they'd formed over 18 years. Other than that one slap, Ashton received no punishment. After that, though, he kept his head down. For a while, we stayed out of each other's way, and things were quiet. About 2 weeks later, during a painfully cheerful family dinner, I brought it up casually. So, what are you going to do about my adoptive parents? The mood at the table instantly shifted. My mother forced a smile. Caleb, let's just let it go. After all, they did raise you, and they are Ashton's birth parents. I sneered. Getting beaten every day and barely fed counts as raising someone. I pulled on my sleeve, showing the scars again. You see this? That's from his father's belt. The burn mark on my leg. His mother threw boiling water on me. I was their punching bag my entire childhood. If you call that kindness, then maybe Ashton should go back and experience some of it for himself. I stood up so fast my chair fell over. If you won't give me justice, I'll get it myself. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Caleb, you suffered so much. I never knew. I promise. Mom will make it right. I laughed coldly. Mom, now that I'm back, my adoptive parents are all alone. Isn't that a pity? Why don't we let my dear brother go back and take care of them in their old age? My mother, caught up in the emotion of the moment, agreed without thinking. Okay, whatever you say, Mom will do it. Ashton went pale. Mom, I can't go back. They'll hit me. Why would they do that? I said, walking over and patting his shoulder. You're their real son. I'm sure your birth mother will welcome you with open arms and a home-cooked meal. My father saw the relentless look in my eyes and finally gave in. Ashton, don't worry. You will always be my son. If you have any trouble, you call me, and I'll handle it. Seeing that both his parents had agreed, Ashton knew it was a losing battle. He gritted his teeth and nodded. I understand, Dad. It's all my fault for disrupting the family. I'll leave in a few days. There he went again with a martyr act. I wanted to kick him. Seeing his heartbroken expression, my father couldn't stand it. Don't worry, I'll make arrangements. A house, cash. You'll be taken care of. Such touching father-son devotion. At night, I burned the midnight oil. I used to be a straight A student, but every time I brought home a top score, I got a beating for it. Eventually, I learned to just turn in blank tests. Now, my father had enrolled me in a prestigious prep school and hired a full-time tutor. I had to cram years of missed education into a few short months. I knew that feelings were the most useless currency in this house. Right now, they might agree to my demands out of guilt, but over time, that guilt would fade. They would start to see me as ungrateful, comparing me to the perfect Ashton they remembered, and they would grow to resent me. The only real power was the power you built for yourself. Of course, I still played dumb, a habit forged over a decade of survival. My test scores were abysmal. I never did my homework. Ashton, on the other hand, was the model student. When my mother saw his perfect report card next to my failing grades, she started to waver again. On one side, the brilliant son she'd raised for 18 years. On the other, the useless, traumatized biological son. "Caleb, can't we find a compromise?" she pleaded one evening. "Don't make Ashton move out. You know what his parents are like. If he goes back there, his grades will plummet." I shrugged, acting like I didn't care. "Fine. Give me $10 million and a condo. I'll move out. We can go our separate ways. The Clark family fortune can be all his. I don't want it." Ashton immediately started his routine. "Mom, please don't fight with my brother because of me. I'll study even harder. I'll get into Harvard." I was so sick of his terrible acting. I just scoffed and walked upstairs. With the SATs approaching, every second counted. I had to study in secret, grinding away while everyone else slept. Late one night, I heard a key turn in my bedroom door. I quickly shoved my textbooks under the bed and grabbed my PlayStation controller. Ashton stepped in, dropping the meek act entirely. His eyes were sharp and cold. "I'm telling you right now, everything in this family is mine," he hissed. "If you know what's good for you, you'll disappear." I clutched my chest, feigning terror. And what if I don't? I stood up to push him out of my room, but I'd underestimated how crazy he was. He pulled out a pocket knife and stabbed himself viciously in the arm. The next second, the performance began. "Brother, I just wanted to bring you a glass of tea. Why would you do this to me?" he screamed, loud enough to wake the dead. I just smiled. This was his big plan? The same cheap tricks. "Ashton, what happened?" My mother came running down the hall. She saw the blood pouring from his arm and gasped in horror. "Mom, don't blame him," Ashton whimpered. "He has every right to hate me." That was all my mother needed to hear. She turned and slapped me hard across the face. "What is wrong with you? How can you be so vicious?" "He did it to himself. He's framing me. This isn't the first time he's pulled something like this." But she wouldn't listen. No one would be crazy enough to stab themselves. Ashton's weak voice piped up again. "Mom, this is the debt I owe my brother." Such a brilliant performance. They rushed Ashton to the hospital. "Doctor," my mother begged, "use the best medicine you have. I don't want my son to have a scar." That single word, son, cut deeper than any knife. My parents stayed up all night. They looked at me like I was a murderer. The air in the waiting room grew heavier and heavier until, after another pained groan from Ashton's room, it finally broke. "Get out," my mother shrieked at me. "You're a jinx. I never should have brought you back. You deserved every beating you ever got." She lunged at me, clawing and hitting. My father was calmer. He pulled a key and a debit card from his wallet. "This is for a small apartment. There's $1 million on the card. Don't ever contact us again." I laughed coldly and took them without hesitation. "I'll take your parting gifts. I hope you'll return the favor and stay out of my life." I paused at the door. "But before I go, you should see this." I had a feeling Ashton wouldn't give up so easily. A week ago, I'd installed a small security camera in my bedroom. I never thought it would pay off so spectacularly. I played the video on my phone. It clearly showed Ashton walking into my room, pulling out the knife and stabbing his own arm. I didn't stick around to see their reactions. I put the card and key in my pocket and walked out of their lives. They had never treated me like a son, and I had never seen them as my parents. I went back to my old neighborhood. My abusive adoptive parents were probably off gambling somewhere. I'd left in such a hurry, I'd forgotten my things. Rummaging through the squalor, I finally found my birth certificate and social security card, which they had always hidden to control me. Underneath them was a dusty manila envelope. Inside was a paternity test. I scanned the document, and a cold smile spread across my face. The plot was getting thicker. The SATs were just around the corner. I didn't even bother going to school anymore. I holed up in my new apartment and hire my own tutor. The Clarks called a few times, but I blocked their number. Eventually, they stopped trying. I heard Ashton's injury was worse than they'd thought. He'd damaged a tendon and was recovering at home. My parents had hired a top-tier tutor for him, too. I was eager to see how the kid who bought his good grades would fare on the real test. The day of the exam arrived. Other kids were dropped off by their parents in shiny SUVs, armed with flowers and encouragement. I was escorted by a crew of guys with neck tattoos and shaved heads. At the entrance to the testing center, I saw the familiar black Rolls-Royce. Ashton was there, his arms still in a sling. Serve him right. My parents saw me and opened their mouths to say something, but I ignored them and walked inside. Behind me, my crew started chanting, "Go get him, boss. If you fail, no sweat. We already saved up for next year's fees." My eyes got a little misty. These guys were rough around the edges, but they were loyal to a fault. The 3 days of testing flew by. Afterward, I didn't slow down. I knew the best revenge was to become so successful they couldn't touch me. A couple of weeks after the test, while I was working on a mobile app I'd been developing, my phone rang. "Hello, is this Caleb?" A cheerful voice asked. "This is the admissions office at MIT. We were wondering if you'd be interested in attending." Turns out I hadn't just passed. I had gotten a perfect score. I was a goddamn prodigy. A little while later, my face was all over the news. I ignored it and kept coding. If all went well, this app would be my first real score. One day, my doorbell rang. It was my father, his expression grim. "Come home with me." "Excuse me, sir, do I know you?" I said politely. "I believe we've severed our relationship." His face tightened, but he forced a painful smile. "Caleb, are you still mad at your father? You shouldn't have hidden your talent from us." I took a step back, avoiding his outstretched hand. I was afraid Ashton would have a meltdown if he didn't score higher than me. All that crying is nauseating. My father had the grace to look embarrassed. "Your brother didn't even get into a state school. That kid, he choked when it mattered most." I refused his invitation to come home again. "Mr. Clark, I'm quite comfortable on my own. If I go back, I'm worried I'll get framed for something else, and this time I might actually kill someone." "Don't worry," he said quickly. "I've already sent him back to his parents. Your mother and sister are at home preparing a feast to welcome you back." I thought about it for a second, then nodded. All right, I wanted to see what kind of game they were playing now. When I got to the penthouse, Ashton was indeed gone. My mother was beaming. "Caleb, I knew you had it in you. You're a true Clark. Look, I had the chef make all your favorites." I looked at the table, piled high with shrimp, lobster, and crab. I almost laughed out loud. "I'm allergic to shellfish. Don't you remember? Which one of your sons loves seafood?" The smile froze on her face. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I must have forgotten. Chef, prepare a new meal quickly, and we've prepared the master guest suite for you, the biggest and best room." So this is what they meant by knowledge is power. They wanted to use my perfect SAT score and MIT acceptance to generate positive PR for their company, which I knew was in financial trouble. Not if I can help it. The lunch was painfully awkward. When it was over, I stood up. "Mr. and Mrs. Clark, thank you for the meal. I have some things to attend to, so I'll be heading home now." My polite, distant tone made my mother's face fall. "Caleb, are you still angry with us?" I sent Ashton away. "What more do you want?" "I want to see your world burn." Just then, the front door opened, and Ashton walked in. "Mom, I got the things you sent me to the store for." His voice trailed off when he saw me. My mother's lie was exposed, and she looked away, flustered. They were still trying to play me for a fool. "Since we're all here," I said calmly, "I have a gift for you as well." My mother's eyes lit up. I reached into my bag, pulled out the paternity test, and slapped it on the table. She opened it. Her face grew darker with every line she read, her body starting to tremble. "Robert Clark, you son of a bitch!" she screamed, her eyes blazing with a fire I'd never seen before. "Mom, what's wrong?" Ashton said, trying to intervene. "Don't let him trick you." He knew his mother was his biggest ally in this house, and he clung to that hope. But that was before the rules of the game had changed. If Ashton wasn't just a replacement, but the illegitimate son of her husband, that was a different story entirely. That's right. Ashton was the product of an affair between my father and my adoptive mother, Brenda. My father had known about the switch from the very beginning. My mother was shaking with rage. She finally understood that for 18 years, she had been raising her husband's bastard child with his mistress. And worse, She had tormented her own son to protect him. My sister, Chloe, grabbed the report and read it, her face a picture of disbelief. Dad, you knew this whole time, didn't you? The date on the report was from when Ashton was 3 years old. I fanned the flames. Ashton knew who he was the whole time, too. That's why he was never afraid. I was enjoying this. Burn, baby, burn. Don't listen to him, my father yelled. Am I lying? I countered. Then who was the mysterious benefactor sending monthly payments to my adoptive mother all these years? My mother looked like her entire life had been a joke. You bastard, she shrieked at my father. Have you forgotten how you got your start in this business? Seeing there was no way out, my father gave up. So what? What do you want to do? You've raised Ashton as your son for years. We could just go on as we were. Just pretend we have 2 sons. In your dreams, she spat. You have 2 choices. 1, you cut off all contact with this bastard and sign over the entire company and all your assets to me. Or 2, I will burn Clark Industries to the ground and ruin you. So help me God. She pointed a trembling finger at Ashton. Get this bastard out of my sight. Such a fickle woman. 1 minute he was her precious baby, the next he was a bastard. I was done with their drama. I had an app to finish. I slipped out during the chaos. I underestimated the fallout. The fight escalated. My mother was kicked out of the house and went back to her family. Her father was a retired, powerful politician. The network of favors and influence he commanded could crush a company like Clark's with ease. With my mother feeding him information, it didn't take long. Within 2 weeks, Clark Industries was on the verge of bankruptcy, besieged by creditors and angry employees. Meanwhile, my mother found my adoptive father, Rick. So that's why the bitch never wanted to have kids with me, he snarled. Don't you worry, ma'am. I'll make them regret they were ever born. Cheating on me. Ashton's personal hell had just begun. I hoped his soft, pampered body could handle it for a few years. It would be a shame if he died too quickly. I ended up going to MIT. My app launched and was an immediate success. During this time, my mother tried to contact me several times. I was always polite but firm. Ma'am, we have no legal or emotional relationship. A call would interrupt her, and she would rush off, looking panicked. I found out later that my father had fought back. He had become a whistleblower, exposing my grandfather for years of corruption and abuse of power. In the end, they destroyed each other. My father's company went bankrupt, leaving him with mountains of debt. My mother's family assets were seized, and she was left with nothing. The one who got the worst of it was my dear brother. I heard that after 2 weeks of nonstop beatings from Rick, he tried to run away. Rick caught him and broke his leg. His mother, Brenda, finally had enough and called the police. Rick, in a drunken rage, came after them with a knife. He was shot and killed by the police on the scene. Both Brenda and Ashton were left permanently disabled, penniless and crippled, a truly miserable existence. I wish them both a long, long life. I even asked my old crew to look out for them, to make sure they didn't find an easy way out. But none of that had anything to do with me anymore. I was a new man, and tonight, I was celebrating with my crew. Boss, are you serious? You want us to come work for your new company? One of them asked, a rare look of vulnerability in his eyes. We ain't got no education. I saw the insecurity flash across their faces. I pretended to be angry and punched him lightly on the chest. What? You don't trust me? You don't think I can make you rich? No, boss, it's not that. You're our guy. I stood up and looked each of them in the eye. Listen to me. You are not less than anyone else. A lack of a diploma doesn't mean a lack of character. And coming from nothing doesn't mean you're going nowhere.